Welcome everyone to this week's episode of VGN Weekly. Each week we recap all Virtual Grip Network broadcasted events right here. We also will have in-depth interviews with league owners, sponsors, and drivers, and more. So subscribe, like our broadcast, and so you don't ever miss an episode. Also, if you're a league owner and have a broadcasting need, you can visit us at virtualgrip.net. This week's broadcasted series, with the holidays, we took the week off, so we did not have anything to recap this week. So what I'm going to do is fire up the old VGN Wayback Machine, head back to an old friend of the BRL, and this week we're going to bring in none other than one of the original voices of the BRL. It is Sean Ambrose. Sean has since moved over to iRacing and works on their broadcast, so we're going to get to talk about him and much more. So, Sean, welcome on in, man.
And I stumbled out of the gate. There we go. The mute button is off. John, it's an absolute pleasure to be on. Thank you for asking me. Somebody knows I have a pulse. That's great. It's awesome. It's good to be seen.
It is. It's good to see you. And you know what? The first broadcasted race that you did, I saw, was streamed almost 9 years ago. So talk about getting in the Wayback Machine. You know, it kind of goes back quite a bit on the old GSRC. I think that was who we broadcasted. Yeah. But you know, before we get into your broadcast stuff, you actually have 3 career BRL starts. Do you remember any of them?
Oh God. Oh, that's tough. I do have 3 BRL.
And there 2 are in the Northeast and 1 is, I guess, in the South.
Yeah, I'm. Oh man. Oh, you're
put you right on the spot.
Yeah, you did, because I wasn't expecting that one. I'm like,
well, here, I'll give you a clue. The first
nobody talks to me about Sean the driver ever.
Well, I did some digging. The first one is famous for its 250 lap race. Does that help?
Yeah, would that have been Martinsville?
Oh, Martinsville is one of them, but that wasn't the one I was talking about.
That wasn't the one, okay.
I forgot about Martinsville having that too, yep.
50. Oh, God, would that have been Concord, maybe?
Nope, go further north.
No.
They're in your neck of the woods. Stafford's one?
Stafford, yeah, okay.
Stafford's one, and then the last one, can you...
Thompson.
Nope, close.
No, not Thompson.
Same, you're in the right area.
Oh, geez.
It's almost a circle.
Don't say a track that's not on the service.
No, it's on the service. It's still there.
Yeah. Oh, you're killing. Oxford?
Oxford, there you go.
Oxford, okay.
And would you believe it? You have a top 10 in one of those 3 starts. So.
Yeah. I think Adina Mendez was in that race too, so the pace car driver. Yeah, that's I did not expect to get asked about I did not edit that, please. I did not expect to get asked about racing in the BRL.
Well, that's how I like to start these conversations. Wow. Get somebody off kilter, and then
it's like I raced.
Yeah, 3 races. But everybody knows you obviously as one of the original voices, like I said, and it was kind of cool to see 3 starts. I thought, that was probably just as long ago as those broadcasts. So gonna be curious if you remembered those, and long time ago.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually have competed in some of the leagues that I broadcasted along the way. I know the Lionheart IndyCar Series is one of them. I don't think I ever raced in an official race, but I always practiced with those guys. I used to practice with the BRL guys quite a bit, or especially early on when I first started commentating. It was part of the immersion factor for me and being able to get into the whole commentating mind of it all. But one funny story is I've raced in a few majors events, and we're all familiar with the majors and the great work they do. Indy 500, many years ago, I've probably dating back 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years now. I went out with a penalty, so I still owe a pay. If I ever race in the majors again, I'm still sitting on a penalty that I've got to serve. So, sorry, Mike, but I will serve it. Should I ever come back? There you go.
Awesome. I think I got a penalty next week in BRL when we go to
you rough somebody up. There you go, John. You
Well, I
roughed
didn't rough somebody up. No, I ran out of talent. So,
Oh,
which happens
okay.
more than me roughing somebody up.
Yeah,
But maybe I'll
You hate
take
to
your
see it.
exit. Maybe I'll take your exit and take the next few months off. See if Lowell remembers.
Yeah, I'm hoping Mike over at the majors doesn't. Mike Willett doesn't remember. That was the plan. So.
Well, I don't know if there's got to be statutes of limitations, right? So
I don't know.
we're beyond that.
Mike's pretty hardcore. I don't know.
well, let's not talk so you don't have to incriminate yourself anymore.
Yeah, please.
About Sean the driver. Let's go to the broadcast career. Tell me how you got started. What led you into the field?
So we're writing a screenplay right now, so I can't start at the beginning.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I'm old now. Okay, so I caught up to Soup finally, and it's so crazy how I got to the whole broadcasting thing, because broadcasting for me started back in the 80s, and when I thought I was maybe going to get into TV or something, and I went to college and got a degree and stuff, a small degree, nothing. Please don't anybody think I did anything big. Shout out Art Institute of Dallas, now defunct. But anyway, I thought I was going to do something, and then life happened, right? I went into construction, did all kinds of crazy stuff, got in the insurance industry, raised a family, and then started playing around with computers. When those became a thing in the late '80s, very early '90s. Buying those IBM Uber towers, and my brother Johnny and I, which everybody at the Bootleg Crazing League probably knows and remembers at one time or another, because he's runs. But anyway, we started playing with computers and everything, and started taking them apart, and we played one of Dave Kamer's first titles. Dave Kamer, our Lord and Savior of sim racing,
Yes.
Indianapolis 500, and we started taking computers apart, putting computers back together, and next thing you know, we're into computers. And sometime in the late '90s, I think it was 99. NASCAR Heat was out. It was a PC-based game. It was one of the early NASCAR-based racing sims. And my brother at Thanksgiving gives me, and don't tell anybody, he gives me a CD-R. That's a CD that you could write stuff to, a copy of his NASCAR Heat, and says, "Man, go home, install this, get on the internet, we can race." Next thing I know, we're on a site called Internet Race Finder. We're using a voice chat communication thing called Roger Wilco. In the middle of the night, we're racing with guys all over the country. We made all these friends, 40, 50-something guys, a handful of them we still talk to, communicate with either Facebook or meetups or whatever. It's amazing. This doesn't even span broadcasting, right? This is just getting into sim racing. And next thing you know, we're playing first-person shooters, going and shooting up each other when we got tired of racing for 6-7 hours straight. We're like, hey, let's go play an EA title or something like that. Next thing you know, we're beta testing games and having fun, and got into NR2K3. NASCAR Heat kind of faded. We got into NR2K3, and the bottom kind of fell out on that. I had to get out of sim racing. Life took over. I was raising my kids. They were turning into young men and everything. There was just too many things going on, and my brother pulls me into iRacing almost 15 years ago. He was one of the early members. He's got one of those 5-digit account number guys. Low starts with a 1. Yeah, one of those guys. And he's like, "Hey, you gotta." I'm a 9, by the way. I'm a 5-digit 9 guy. 99. I won't say the rest. Figure it out. Anyway, so he gets me into iRacing, and I'm on iRacing for a little while, and we're having fun, and he introduces me to a guy. We're racing Cadillacs at Charlotte in the middle of the night. There was no night. The way you did that was jack the humidity all the way up, and you could race in the dark at Charlotte because it didn't have lights yet. So we're racing Cadillacs. I meet this guy named Richard Losper. He was one of the founders of GSRC. He's like, why don't you try coming over and commentating with us? I'm like, my brother John's like, oh yeah, Sean used to do radio and stuff back in the '80s, and okay. Johnny and I grew up at the racetrack, so I got into sim racing broadcasting, and that's how it started. That's how the ball got rolling. Joe Peak came to me of GSRC, came to me, Joe and Gio, and Richard as well came to me and said, "Hey, we're taking on a modified series. We know you grew up at the track with your dad, racing modifieds all over the Northeast. Is this something that would be cool for you?" I was like, a duck to water, right? I mean, it was no second guessing it. I got hooked up with Soup, and then shortly after I did that first broadcast with Soup, we started the next season, and then I got to work with Evan Pisoko, who was basically starting his sim racing. And listen, if you're watching it or listening to this podcast, you don't know who Evan Pisoko is, look him up. He knows a little bit about sim racing. But anyway, and I was just watching my first broadcast, listening to the first broadcast with Evan. It's so funny listening to him. It's disgusting listening to me. I'm terrified listening to myself because it's so bad. Evan is so young, so full of energy, and not that he isn't anymore, because he's full of even more energy now, which is scarier. And I get to do a lot of broadcasts with him these days at iRacing, but listening to that is so funny. But yeah, those were two of the first guys that I really, really got to work with. And again, Evan was just getting started, and who knew at that point, right? So funny that I actually still do get to do broadcasts with Evan in some capacity. But yeah, starting out with Soup, and although it wasn't my first broadcast, it was my first official series to work on.
Also, BRL was your introduction to broadcasting, at least online broadcasting, or
yeah.
Wow. Well, when you think back to when all that
crazy.
When you go back to those early days of doing the BRL and stuff like that, you got to be amazed at the technology or what goes in behind the scenes to what you do now. I mean, it's probably night and day different, I would think.
Oh, listen, it's night and day different now 3 years later. So September 7th, I think is my 3-year anniversary at iRacing. Sean, remember where you work? Yeah, so just about 3 years ago is when I did my last broadcast as a streamer for GSRC. I was still working with 1.5 computers. I couldn't do that right now. Not in this landscape of what we're doing in sim racing broadcasting. No way. Couldn't stream with 1 box, 1.5 box. I need 2 at best, and definitely add a third. I'd love to have a third if I was doing it by myself. But yeah, man, it's the tech is just ever changing. And going back to those early days, the broadcast, you pulled up for me, my first one back there in 2015. I mean, everybody was 1 box at that point, and the graphic packages were very, very modest. The audio was very modest. Everything about the broadcast was very modest. We had a great team at GSRC, and we had several guys that were very, very particular about how we did things, structure. We only did things that worked. We didn't do things that we were guessing at. It's no, we tested. Some stuff we stayed with to a fault. I mean, for a long time, because we knew they worked. I remember the whole transition from TeamSpeak, Discord was a really, really big thing.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember how long you and Soup teamed up together? How many seasons that was? I mean, in a row.
So I didn't do
math.
I didn't do the math. Okay, but I can tell you
it was probably quite a few, because I know when I joined the league a couple years after that, it was you guys in there.
And I can tell you with utmost certainty that we did at least 4 years of bootleg on and off together consecutively. And if we go back to the last broadcast, like you said here, when I did some not too long ago, that spans about 8 years of.
Yeah, you peeked in and watched our dirt. I got to get a dirt mention of dirt.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
All of the podcasts,
Yep.
But you're the one that actually came up with Boogie Time, aren't you?
Oh, with It's Time to Boogie. Yeah, it's
Time to Boogie.
All right, so I'll pull the curtain back. We were joking around one night, and we were talking about DW and boogity and all that, and I have some feelings about that, as I think many do. It maybe got tired there at the end. I don't know. I love DW.
That's a nice way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, but how can you not like Darrell Waltrip unless you
absolutely
didn't like the way he raced or he roughed up your favorite driver? He probably did because he roughed up a lot of guys. And
well, guys that win a lot tend to do that. So.
Yeah, he was a hell of a wheel man, and you know what? He's one of the pioneers of auto racing commentating. I'm not gonna take anything away from what that guy did, but like I said, maybe boogity started to wear on us a little bit. Just Soup and I were joking, and I said, when it comes down to it, all we want to do is just boogie, Soup. He's like, you gotta use it. You gotta use it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So it just kind of happened.
Then the mirror ball.
Yeah. Drop the disco ball down, Mr. DJ. It's time to boogie, and that's how that kind of all started. And
VRL history.
Yeah, and then we got a graphic and everything. Yeah, Soup is whenever there's a great idea, Soup finds a way to just pile on, make it a little bit better, hone it in.
Yeah, he's just so creative. I mean, that guy, I don't think he ever stops thinking of ideas, and he's amazing.
He is the most creative person, and I will say this with 100% belief in my heart, the smartest people I have ever met in my life. So I'm gonna try and not get emotional because he doesn't give himself near enough credit, man.
No, he doesn't.
He's genius walking among us.
So, he is, and he has some ideas that tend to be out there a little bit, but it's okay. I mean, like you said.
Oh, he's trying to bring gambling to iRacing. He's like, we got to do it, and we need a line on these races. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? If we see it, we'll know where it came from. We'll know who to blame.
Oh yeah, yeah. Kevin Bobbitt, our director of marketing at iRacing, every now and then I'll drop in his office and I'll drop an idea on him that Soup might have shared with me one time. And you're like, Sean, please just keep walking. You just go get that coffee you're wanting to get. Yeah, but I'm not going to stop. I'm honest when I tell Soup. I do share these ideas. Maybe one of them will hit. We'll see.
Well, you talk about, being there in the iRacing studios, and iRacing played a really big part when we all got locked down in COVID. You guys had the NASCAR deal that was actually broadcast on network TV.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was that like? Because you had to work with not only iRacing parameters, but you had network guys in there too, which that had to be a very interesting time.
It was amazing. It was incredible. I was working as while working at GSRC, while being a part owner at GSRC, I was moonlighting as a third-party contractor for iRacing's broadcasting. I was one of the first 2 or 3 third-party contractors they had. I'd got to meet Drew Adamson prior to them taking over kind of broadcasting the iRacing product. And he brought me onto the team to basically work as cameraman, backup producer. In case they dropped feed, it would switch to me over in my cave in Green Valley Lake, California, which was daunting. Trust me. It's like, okay, we're doing this Fox broadcast. If everything goes bad here, we're going to be switching over to, we need you to run the show. And so, whereas I was ready, I was completely happy to just do camera. Much more, and that was, the early on.
You weren't even in the iRacing studios when you did that.
No,
wild.
I was 3,000 miles away. We had Jay Kennedy from SimSpeed was on that crew as well, down in Australia. We had him on doing cameras. Yeah, we had another one of our cameramen, Timmy Burns. Timmy was up in Canada. So yeah, 3 cameramen, and we were spread out, about as spread out as you could be.
That's where the technology is just crazy. I mean, on occasion, because Steven Spees and I do the VRS, the endurance stuff from time to time.
Mm-hmm. And
we have
the great Steven Spees. Yes,
the great Steven Spees, and on occasion, I have a pinch me moment because it's crazy to think that I'm racing. There's a guy sitting, like you said, Australia, sitting on this grid with me, And that is just such a crazy thought. I guess maybe it's because I'm getting older, and I remember the old rotary phones. You know, so if
Oh
you know
man.
if you misdialed, you had to start all over, and
Da, da,
basically
da, da, da,
your
da, da,
lunch hour was yep.
da,
There you
da, da,
go.
da, 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 da.
Your lunch hour
We
is shot if you missed you messed up the dialing. So yeah, but wow, I did not realize you guys were in those different places doing those
yeah,
broadcasts.
yeah.
That is
And so it was
crazy.
just back at the only people back at iRacing Control originally were Drew Adamson, and then few months later, Cisco Scaramuza, who was at LSR TV, who bootleg had a season.
Mhm.
And Cisco was actually working behind the scenes during that, so he remembers bootleg very very well. We talk about Lowell all the time. Wonder how he's doing. So um, I do work with Cisco Scaramuza. Speaking of genius, he is right up there with the best of them. Um, yeah, man, that was a wild time. The Fox broadcasts were really really special. Especially when like I went into ATVO, the timing and scoring that we use our for our graphics packages at iRacing that we used at GSRC, and you pull up that timing screen and you see Dale Jr. and Darrell Waltrip and you name it, all name the NASCAR driver,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah, it's just
and you know
crazy.
everybody. It was nuts seeing that, and I still have the photo of the timing and scoring of that first invitational event that we did, the very first one on TV. I wish I'd have pulled it and shared it, but I still have that screenshot of the timing and scoring.
Um,
Oh.
you should next time you walk by Kevin's office, so you should say, "Hey, we got to figure out how to get these guys in for either a one or two off in the off season. Pull some guys together because those were the most entertaining things I think I've ever watched. Having them because you guys had the shots of those drivers in their seats and stuff like that, and they were kind of letting their hair down and they
Oh
were
yeah.
having fun. That was, and I don't know if it was because I am in iRacing, but there was something about that was as weird as I can't believe I'm gonna actually say this. I actually found that more entertaining than turning on a cup race on Sunday. And right now, someone in NASCAR's head just exploded, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, that was so entertaining to watch. And yeah,
I agree. I agree. It was a great thing. iRacing did. Honestly, here on, and I'm sorry, I'm got to remember my date. I got to make sure I get it right because I don't want to. I don't want to. We've got the 4th annual MS Charity Race event coming
yes,
on.
yes,
We
coming
have
up in
Chet,
Charlotte.
which Chad Knaus is incredibly involved with. It's a tremendous
Oh, really?
vehicle for him and his family. He's one of the lead people behind this. He'll be competing again with Steve Myers on July
Oh, wow.
17th. It's going to be the GT3s against the street stocks, John.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh man.
GT3s against the street stocks. So, and that will be full of NASCAR personality. We're going to have a lot of streamers. We're trying. I
Very cool.
believe the great Matt Malone might be making an
Matt Malone.
appearance. Matt and
That's
his
another
mustache
guy.
might be racing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I enjoy watching Matt. He's got some good material out there, content out there. So
Yes,
yes,
yes, yes, and a friend of my former network GSRC, a friend of iRacing, been around. One of the streamers out there that's just been always very very nice to iRacing and supporting what we do as a company and all of these events. And he's one of our ambassadors now. We have an ambassador program. We have a lot of streamers that have come on board with us as ambassadors. Who knows? Maybe someone from the Bootleg Racing League. Maybe J.R. Shepard should be an ambassador. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
it's I'm sure anybody here at BRL would be more than happy to take that mantle and do everybody proud. But let me jump to we could go on and on. I'm sure about this
Yeah, we
NASCAR
could.
because I'll be honest now. I want to totally geek out, but people probably start turning the channel after we're talking about an hour into that. But you know what? You also do the pro broadcast. The NASCAR E Series, the World of Outlaws. All those different series. As you guys as a team there, what are the different challenges between the disciplines between doing an oval race to doing a road race to doing a dirt race?
I see my camera's doing funny things. I'm sorry about it. I have a potato camera, and I apologize. You know what? That is a great question because there are challenges, especially like when we talk about dirt. Okay, we talk about the heat format, right? That we've all become
Oh,
familiar with now.
yes.
iRacing put in heat, pace, pace. It's always pace. The show is dictated by pace, the pace of the event. Okay. Um, Obviously, our eNASCAR Tuesday show is different than anyone we do. Sans the Porsche Super Cup Series, we do have a pre-race. A lot of moving elements to our pre-race show for eNASCAR. But once we get into the racing, it's oval racing. It's your standard NASCAR oval racing. The pace, whereas the pace of the cars is fast, the event, the flow of the racing, not quite as fast as a heat format dirt racing event where you've got 8 laps, no cautions in a heat, right? You go to a consi with 10 laps, still no cautions, right? And then maybe at another consi and a main, it's bang 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 bang, right? You're not doing cautions to get to the main. Commentators need to be on their toes. Everything changes. Tone, pace of the commentators, pace of the crew behind the scenes. It's like, all right, 2, 3, 4, right? Get that Emmy up. Get that Emmy up. It's the directors throwing everything at you from a call standpoint of what you're going to push on the board. Like for the World of Outlaws Dirt Series, I've been the technical director. I've been at the board for those shows. It's called a TC2 TriCaster control board, and then it's huge. It's got a lot of flashing buttons. It's very intimidating.
Well, you know what? When we get a good race, because I've broadcasted now with Soup for almost a year now,
Mhm.
and I can always tell when he gets excited when there's something really good happening on the track and all that. What's it like behind the scenes? There, because for you guys, when crazy stuff happens, all that kind of stuff, whether it be drivers settling grudges to 3 wide. But what's usually the reaction behind the scenes there for you guys?
So at the end of the day, we're all there because we're fans. We
Yep.
love racing, right? Very
Yes.
rarely do you run into somebody that's in this that they're really not connected in some way or another, right? They come from some area of the sports world. They enjoy competition, and sometimes being a fan takes over, right? And like you said, someone settles a grudge all of a sudden, and I'm not going to use any names. I'm not.
No, we don't
Say
need to do that.
X driver, Y driver decides to punt somebody on a
Yep.
on a yellow flag,
Which,
whatever.
in all fairness, happens all levels.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Everything.
Absolutely.
So it's an emotional sport.
That's
That's why we like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we react in the control room. We absolutely react. I mean, we shout, we scream, right? We're on mic, and the whole production team hears you. Sometimes a cameraman will shout something out and didn't mean to because they got caught up in the moment. And we're all on voice acting. We're not doing push to talk.
Yep.
So these things happen. You say something inadvertently, and so yeah, sometimes you're a little bit too invested in what you're doing though.
Mhm.
To actually get caught up in the moment of the racing. Like sometimes a really great race is spoiled by work. I hate to say that, but
funny how many times in life that's true.
Yeah.
Work spoils a hell of a lot of things.
It's like, so do you remember what happened on lap 2020? No, I didn't see any of that. How did you not see it? You were looking around like I was looking at it, but my mind was in the board in front of me. I also work as the audio engineer. In fact, most of the iRacing broadcasts, I'm the audio engineer behind, watching those. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola series, I am the audio engineer for. Although this last Tuesday night from Chicago, because Cisco was in Chicago handling the live piece of the event, Sean got to actually be the technical director for his first eNASCAR Coca-Cola race, and I gotta admit, it was pretty cool. I was pretty jazzed to do that, and I didn't fumble the ball too bad. I left a little bit of meat on the bone, but we'll get it better next time. So
Ryan Seneca and I have post-production conversations that go just like that after each and every one of these shows, and
good. I'm glad to hear that. That's great. That really is. That's because that is sound that sound work. You guys are doing great work. That
Yeah.
really is. That's good to hear.
It's Ryan carrying me. I just run my mouth, man. So
Yeah.
all the stuff that you
No.
guys see around and all that, that's I have to give him
Keep
full credit.
evaluating. Keep looking within yourself. Keep always thinking you left a little meat on the bone in that last show or whatever, and it keeps you motivated to do more. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm about to pass another lunar cycle here around the sun, and I'm still learning, and it's really cool that I am. So
have you hit 50 yet? I hit
dude,
50 this year.
I'm about to hit the double nickel. I remember when Lowell. I remember
didn't
when
realize
Lowell
you're
hit
older
that
than
number.
I am.
Yeah, I remember when Lowell hit that number. I still, yeah, well, it was a bit ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was tough when Lowell did it because then we all had to, he had to, scribe in his tablet,
I think he changed his number to that number for that season, or he went to like 5 or something like that. I don't remember but he playing some kind of. There was some kind of buffoonery going on.
I didn't realize they had electricity back then, but okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. I am literally.
This is the last of VGN podcast as your host. But
no, it's okay. I get it too, because I do work with a very, very young crew at iRacing, and I love every one of them. Corey, Cisco, Drew are the 3 guys that I work with. Drew being our producer, and whenever we all go out together, I always get handed the check. They think I'm out with my kids having lunch. It's pretty funny, and the guys ride me pretty hard about it. But very
it's
comfortable.
not all bad. For all of you that are getting up there, it's not all that bad.
I'm going to break news here. I'm actually going to be a grandfather in November for the first time.
Well, congratulations.
So. Yeah.
How cool is
that? It's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool, and I'm still I know how these things happen, but still struggling to find all the words for it.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's really exciting. Congratulations, and you're gonna be like the coolest grandfather ever.
That would be my dad. That would be my dad.
Well, speaking of your dad, got you hooked into this thing. Racing
it's all
as a kid.
Fault.
So throw him under the bus. That's okay on this front. So
it's Junior Ambrose's fault. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that early exposure you had. What did your dad drive?
Well, it starts with my grandfather, with John Ambrose Sr. and back in the 40s, he was tooling around with race cars out there on Long Island, learning the secrets of speed, becoming a garage, quote unquote, garage engineer, right? In a little small town of Riverhead, New York, and
that was a good racetrack up there.
Yes, sir. And he was one of the guys that drove the post that made the walls that opened that track back in the 50s. And one of his or a couple of his pickup trucks would sit out there with the lights on, and that's how at night they'd work through the night driving those posts and putting the guardrails in at Riverhead. So he was one of the guys that built that track. He now is on the wall of champions at Riverhead Raceway for the 7-Eleven and the championships they won with Joe Krakowski as the driver. My dad raced for his dad up until I believe it's 71. They decided to finally go their separate ways, and my dad had a lot of success as a modified driver in the Northeast. Raced with Hall of Fame legend Charlie Gizumbach, Richie Evans. I'm sorry, Bug Stevens. All the great Northeast modified drivers. Jerry Cook, who's still winning races, by the way, in the vintage modified racing series on Long Island and around New England. Jerry Cook's still driving around in his number 38. I mean, they've already got him in the Hall of Fame, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna keep running.
He and Red Farmer. Red's probably 140 years old and still running. Well, I don't know if he's running as much now, but at least up until last year before, he was still running dirt races down here.
Yeah, so my dad drove open wheel modifieds all over the Northeast, and we would travel with him.
Cool memories.
We had a bunch of operating tracks on Long Island still in the late 70s. 3 of the ones that we visited frequently were, of course, Riverhead, Islip Speedway, Freeport Speedway. Islip and Freeport now all gone. At one time, there was something like 70-something tracks on Long Island. There is now one, and that is Riverhead Raceway. The Big Chief still stands out front, greeting everybody to come in. Bridgehampton, the famous Bridgehampton road course, Bridgehampton Speedway, which sits out in Bridgehampton, Long Island. Got to go there as a kid. Saw some Trans Am racing and stuff there as a child.
Oh, cool.
Got to meet some world-class drivers there because of my dad and my grandfather. Got to go on the Bridgehampton circuit as a kid in my dad's '67 Corvette that my mom had bought for him for his birthday. And my brother Johnny and I in the passenger seat get that look from my dad and says, "Don't tell your mom." We're coming. I remember screaming down the front straightaway and watching the Speedo on the '67 Vet do this. And that Speedo, I don't know if anybody knows, but a '67 Vet goes to 160. So I'll let you do the math from there. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Great childhood. I know a lot of people had bad childhood. I'm never tell anybody I had a bad childhood. It was cool. Really cool. Yep. Being up the track.
All that history and all those tracks. Is there a track that is kind of right there near and dear to your heart? You know, whether
Riverhead.
That one, Riverhead. Yeah, I was kind of guessing that after the story. Yeah. But yeah, that is wild. A lot of history then that you grew up being a part of up there.
Yeah. And it got me all emotional because you asked me about Riverhead, and it's like, you know, it's. Damn.
Yeah, I mean,
it's cool.
Yeah, it really, really is, and it's glad that you recognize that, because probably at that time, and even probably growing up, I mean, how long till you kind of recognize, holy cow, we were a part of racing history. I mean, a significant part. I mean, I mean, I'm sure that wasn't at the time you were recognizing that, but how long did it take you before it kind of dawned on you, like, holy cow, this isn't normal. I didn't get to do normal stuff. I got to do extraordinary stuff.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm still getting to do extraordinary stuff because of all of that. And that's the surreal part of life for me right now, is that this opportunity I have at iRacing is all because I grew up at the racetrack. And my brother Johnny and I, and I've told this story a few times recently, my brother Johnny and I used to talk about growing up watching my dad race and how cool it would be to somehow be involved in racing when we grew up, whether it be race car drivers, or we just made a living being involved in racing. Here I am. Yes, past middle age, right? I'm getting there. I'm up there. And I'm getting paid because of auto racing, right? Because of motors. I got to go to Laguna Seca a month ago to do some work, some side work for iRacing as an audio engineer in Ford Sounds. Wow. I was at the racetrack getting paid to do that. It's like just an unimaginable dream. It really, really is. Because my life went so far in another direction. I worked in the music business for 30 plus years and doing backline work, production, touring, all kinds of stuff. Working locally in Dallas, Fort Worth, managing bands, working as a stage manager, working as a roadie. That's what I do. That's what I did best as a roadie, man. People call me roadie back in Dallas. Crazy. It's crazy how this all came back, and it's like, yeah, life can come full circle. It really kind of has. Really, really cool. Being in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago for the modified race on Saturday and getting to do it with two kids that I grew up with at Riverhead, Ty and Doc Smith, two of the closest friends in my whole life. And you follow me on Facebook. You saw the picture I posted of those two guys that I got to hang out with. Man, it's just like, and that's because of iRacing too, because guess what? They gave me a couple of VIP passes to go to the event and be in the infield and hang out with the modified drivers from Riverhead where we grew up. You know, it's like, really cool. So yeah, it's
another one of those pinch me moments.
It is, and I'm glad you said that, because every day I walk in at iRacing, I do pinch me.
Yeah,
believe me.
Yeah,
I was living on a mountain 3 years ago in the middle, in Southern California, and doing other stuff and running GSRC with Joe Peak and having a great time, and I got this tremendous opportunity, and when I got it, the giggle moment. I'm like, no, they really don't want me. They they didn't call the right guy.
Then it probably went to, they're going to pay me for this? Okay.
Well, you know what? Bless Tony Gardner and Kevin Bobbitt, Drew Adamson, Alex Horn, those guys for bringing me in and rolling a dice on somebody who hadn't really been in the professional sector. I dropped out of that many.
Yeah.
I kind of semi-retired when I went to California and never expected to, have another full-time gig with somebody. So
yeah, well, and speaking of iRacing, I guess we can kind of wrap up here and
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the future. We talked about the change that's taken place, just what in the last 5, 6, 7 years to streaming. Now you've got real world racetracks. Almost all of them are streaming now. They're streaming their weekly races. iRacing, you can go onto YouTube and you can find iRacing 7 days a week, almost, 24 hours a day, something live from iRacing being on there. Where do you think all this heads in the next 5, 6 years?
Oh, you know what, John, and this is where I'm going to get honest, right, with where we're at, all right?
Sure.
We're still just a small corner of niche, and it's unfortunate. But here's the good news. There are some really, really big things happening. Like this license with NASCAR and the 2025 console game for NASCAR is huge. Is it going to be iRacing? No. It's going to be the best damn console game you've ever seen, though, for
Just
NASCAR.
like the World of Outlaws was.
Right? Exactly. It's going to be that. It's going to be like I said, the best game for NASCAR console that you've ever played. It's not going to be iRacing. iRacing is going to continue to be iRacing, and it's going to continue to improve. We're going to continue to push the envelope with it. We have a great development team. We have teams for each. We have teams for Exocross, which, by the way, is coming out and is a great console game, a great arcade style 4x4 future racer. But the NASCAR console game, we've got other games coming out in other console forms, PC.
Wow.
But the development and the continued development of iRacing is top priority. There's a huge vision. There's a lot happening, a lot I can't talk about. But our relationship with NASCAR at its core is where we all get bigger. And I'll go a little bit further with the broadcasting. NASCAR has invested a lot in eSports. Okay, they see the value in this, especially where it means bringing in new fans to their sport, and that's where iRacing really brings us all together. Right? Our core customer base is still skews younger, even though we'd like to think all of us older guys are the ones that keep iRacing in business. We're not. We spend money, but we still don't spend
we keep the peripherals, the $1,000 wheels,
right?
And
we keep those. We keep
$5,000 computers.
We keep the boutique guys in business, which is great. And there's so much great stuff out there. I can't even. That's a whole nother 5.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
Anyway, but like I said, we're going to continue pushing the envelope, but there's just it's crazy. There's no stopping what we're doing. But from a broadcast standpoint, man, we turn a lot of numbers on YouTube, but the getting people involved, that whole saying about, all tides rising, ship. I'm sorry, I can't remember that right now. You know where I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Bringing in the streamers. We're doing a lot of co-streaming now. Twitch is huge. The streaming end of what Twitch does and the interaction and bringing people in and watching these events. Let's face it, we know the average, time span spent watching the event has decreased over the years, right? So we've shortened up the format a little bit, especially for eNASCAR. We did it for Porsche Super Cup as well. We made the season a little bit shorter. We did some different things, sprint and feature formats, things like that, just to mix it up a bit, makes things a little bit more exciting, make it more challenging when possible without making it longer. And so that's where we'll continue to look to focus to try and bring more people in. How can we bring more people in without making things longer form? Can we go shorter form with things? Can we come up with different ideas from a competition standpoint of different combinations, tracks, what have you, formats for events, things that work, bringing in more celebrity because of the streamers and the people that are streaming. right now. Bert Kreischer, I don't know if you're familiar with him, the comedian Bert Kreischer, but a lot of Joe Rogan's friends and people that are on his podcast, fellow comedians, they've all gotten on iRacing now. They've got rigs. They all got rigs. They're all racing them on their streams now and stuff. Occasionally, they're hopping in their rigs. I think it's T-Pain. I think T-Pain is now on iRacing. He's got a rig. I might be wrong, so don't quote me. But yeah, we're getting a lot of interaction from now the entertainment sector, the Hollywood sector. People wanting to get involved and get in and race online. So and do some streaming with it. So we're slowly starting to climb out of that corner of niche and maybe get a little bit more mainstream. So it's exciting. It's a lot to come. I think 25 is going to be a big jump off year for all of them. So console game for iRacing, for broadcasting in general.
And you being grandfather, so
yeah,
2025 is going to be a barn burner, isn't it?
Yeah, it really will be. Yeah.
Well, Sean, you know what? I cannot thank you enough, and it's been such a cool time here catching up with you and all that.
Yeah.
We've known each other for years, and I got to at least give you the horns once, right? So,
John, I got to stop you real quick because there's so much we didn't cover. So if you ever want to do more, right? We'll have to
bring you back.
I mean, because I love Soup. I didn't talk about Soup near enough. His influence on all of this and what a soundboard he is for me, man.
I would like to have a show somewhere down the road that has you and Soup in it together.
Let's do that.
That would be a great one. So
no, absolutely.
When we bring you back, we'll probably do the Soup and Crackers show a little bit. So we'll figure out what that'll look like.
My wife still gets a kick out of that. Soup and Crackers thing. I'm like, it's a long story. Yeah.
But Sean, it was. By the way, I did an AI race the other day, and I forgot to give you a crap about this. Just so you know, you wrecked me in a NASCAR race. So
I do this. I get DMs. Quite often, I get texts on my phone. I get an email occasionally. People that I raced with back, like on NASCAR Heat, that I haven't talked to for years, that just kind of guess what my email address might be at iRacing. Hey, punk! It's funny. And one of the guys did me a solid, made me really aggressive, maybe challenging driver to be around. And I catch a little bit of flack for that. Hey, before we do wrap, I have to, and I might get a little emotional real quick. There are so many people I can thank for the things that I'm doing now.
Floor is yours, man.
I didn't mention Amjad Yaman. Always will. He was a big influence of mine at GSRC. He got me into directing and producing shows and taught me the right way to do it. And I have a job at iRacing now because of it. Really cool.
There's always, when we get where we're going, especially at the time we're at in life, there's always a long list there. So it's very cool that you got to mention.
And he was always, him and Joe both were the guys directing those BRL shows.
Yes.
When we were doing those on Saturday nights, and lots of sound advice given, instruction given during those shows because of those guys. Yeah. I'll always be forever thankful. So
we'll have to bring you back on, and we'll bring you back, and we'll talk about those early days and with Soup and whatnot. So, but thank you so much, and if you got a second, we're gonna preview Hickory here right after a commercial break. You got time to stick around? We'll talk a little bit about Hickory.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
You bet.
Then we'll go to a quick commercial, and we'll be right back.
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
welcome back. The BRL will be at Hickory Motor Speedway this coming weekend here, and it's one of the shortest oval bull rings that we go to. The SKs have only been there 6 times. I think we touched on that last week. The late models, I think, have only been there 3 times. So not a lot of history, BRL history with those cars. We do have a couple of past winners. Donnie Moore will be, I think he's the only one that's expected to be in the field for the SKs. And Jeff Harden, I think, picked up a late model win. So like I said, not a lot of history means it's going to be wide open. And Sean, I know you're not probably too much in that production standpoint, but Hickory and the Pro Late model are one of our newer tracks. But that Pro Late model has a lot of Dale Jr. written all over it. What do you think of the new stuff that's coming in there? And I have to ask this question, and I've always wondered this, but what is it like in the iRacing, I guess, campus? The week of a build, a new build, I always get this vision of like just this crazy ant farm going on where people are going in 50 different directions. What is iRacing like on build week?
Well, first of all, Greg Hill does a great job, and not Aussie Greg, who is in charge of our sound, but Greg Hill in charge of all our projects, basically. And I don't want to spew his title because I'm going to get it wrong, and I don't want Greg to be mad at me. Or anyone at iRacing to be mad at me, because I'm still a new guy. Not really. What is it like during build week? It's exactly what you just said, but because Greg Hill manages everything so well, because our teams are so laser focused, have so much direction, have a great plan, build weeks have become not routine, never routine, but well thought out, pretty orderly. Yes, things come up. Yes, sometimes you put a slash where there should have been a space, whatever, right? Or a delimiter.
Yep, in the code.
Something in the code gets funky, or something gets copied and pasted or taken out that wasn't right. Just little bitty things, right? And or it could be, an NVIDIA product not talking something. I mean, as we know, we had some issues recently, and there are popcorn effects and things like that. So there are things as you continue to develop and push the envelope. Sometimes things don't always work out right. So, but build weeks, like I said, are pretty orderly. On release day, we always get donuts. Someone brings in donuts to the office, so that's always something to look forward to. Build day, build day donuts is an iRacing tradition, and one that I've become part of. I think I've brought donut holes a few times, but. And who doesn't like a good donut?
Absolutely.
But, we've always got great things coming out in our releases. Some releases are bigger than others. Obviously, releasing weather, our weather system was kind of big. When you talk about builds, a lot involved with things like that. But, we continue to push great content. We've got more great content coming. We're not letting off the throttle with content. So, yeah, in Hickory. I love Hickory because it's one of those tracks that we had finally gotten on a service that everybody had been screaming for forever. It's been around since 1951. Yes, Dale. A lot
of history there.
Yeah, Dale Jr. Certainly a lot of time at Hickory in his car, and the whole Earnhardt family for that matter. NASCAR's let's face it, the legends of NASCAR have all raced at Hickory at one time or another. So, yeah, man, it's a great track. I certainly bootleg. I believe there was no delay in getting to Hickory when it was released. I believe that showed up on the schedule immediately.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think everybody knew it was coming. And
I think when it got announced, I think Lowell was already just completely geeked up about it and then whatnot. So and anybody that doesn't know Lowell personally, Lowell respects history, and he understood the importance of having Hickory. And getting it on that schedule pretty quick, and it was a fantastic release. In fact, of all the recent releases, at least as far as asphalt goes, Hickory has probably been my favorite one that you guys have released. So, what a great little track!
And we get members all the time requesting some of the great short tracks from around America. Hickory, obviously, it's 0.36.
Yeah, something like that.
0.363, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are a lot of tracks around the country. that's where, the marketing becomes a big thing with iRacing, right? I mean, we would love to scan every track, but it's some
takes time and money to do that.
Right.
So.
Some are cost prohibitive. Some just aren't in the plan. And who knows? I mean, there may come a day when everything is on iRacing. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to talk too far ahead.
No, we don't want you to do that. But you
don't
never
wanna
know
give
where
anybody
technology goes. Technology, you could just probably go with your camera and walk around your cell phone, and voila, you can download that right into a server or something. But
put it in.
Who knows?
Put it in yourself. Yeah.
But
hey,
it
should be some good racing at Hickory.
Yeah, Sean, thank you again.
Yes.
For all your time here, and I've taken up more than what I thought I would. But hey, that's kind of how we're gonna wrap up this week's show.
Right.
So please remember to go out and give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all things VGN. And also for more info, if you are a league that's looking for some kind of broadcast need, please look us up at virtualgrip.net. You can find us there, fill out a little form, and we will be in contact with you. So thank you for watching. We hope to see you this weekend at Hickory. We hope you have a great week. So see you next Tuesday. Until then, have a fantastic week.